Why change often feels heavier than staying the same? Change is usually described as freeing, a fresh start, a new chapter, a step forward, but psychologically, change often feels heavier than staying the same. Even when the current situation isn't working, it's familiar. You know how to navigate it. You know its limits. You know what to expect. Change removes that familiarity. It replaces known discomfort with unknown effort, and unknown effort feels more demanding than familiar struggle. That's why people often remain stuck even when they want things to be different. The mind doesn't compare outcomes. It compares costs. Staying the same has a predictable cost. You already know how to pay it. Change introduces new costs, new effort, new uncertainty, new chances to misjudge yourself. So the system asks a simple question: is the cost of changing lower than the cost of staying? If the answer is unclear, staying becomes the safer option, not because it's better, but because it's familiar. This is why insight alone rarely creates movement. You can understand the problem clearly and still feel unable to act, because understanding doesn't reduce cost. It explains the situation, but it doesn't make effort lighter until the emotional cost of action drops. The system resists, not out of defiance, but out of self-protection. So people wait. They gather information, they prepare, they think, hoping the cost will lower on its own. But cost rarely lowers through waiting. It lowers through exposure, through small contact, through limited engagement, through actions that don't overwhelm the system. When effort is reduced enough, movement becomes possible, not because change feels exciting, but because it feels survivable. That's the shift. Change doesn't begin when the desire becomes strong enough. It begins when the cost becomes manageable. Staying the same isn't always about comfort. Often it's about weight. Change feels heavier until it's broken into something the system can carry. Once the load is light enough, movement happens naturally, not all at once, not dramatically, just enough to begin. And that's how people stop being stuck. Not by forcing change, but by making it lighter than staying. This is why real change often looks quieter than expected. It doesn't arrive as a breakthrough. It doesn't feel like confidence. It feels like something you can finally tolerate doing. When the system no longer needs to protect itself from the effort, movement becomes possible. Not because you became stronger, but because the weight became lighter. That's when progress begins, not as a leap forward, but as a step that no longer feels heavy.